We have a very, very, very special next presenter. I don't know anybody who's familiar with the body ecology diet. It's kind of a buzzword in a lot of health circles, but nobody knows like where it really came from. Donna Gates, a nutritional consultant, author, and lecturer, has helped thousands, I would say hundreds of thousands of people, overcome candida and other immune system disorders. Donna's mission is to educate and introduce Americans to new concepts and insights for using medicinal foods. Donna championed and brought fermented foods and drinks, coconut oil, young coconut kefir, and stevia to the U.S. Now, this is really important. Most people don't realize this. Before David Wolfe, and I remember the day he introduced it, raw chocolate, nobody knew what raw cacao was. Remember 10 years ago? You say raw cacao, people are like, what? David Wolfe introduced it to our Western world. And before him, nobody really knew that chocolate came from a fruit, from a nut. Donna Gates, prior to her introducing these incredible foods, how many have tried the coconut kefir and the tonic bar? How many have tried it mixed in with the probiotics, taking a shot at 2 trillion, friendly bacteria coursing through your system? If you've done it, you know what I'm talking about. If it wasn't for Donna Gates coming up with the technology of making fermented coconut kefir, we wouldn't even have it right now. So we're paying homage to these incredible people without whom we wouldn't have half the things that we're actually enjoying and taking for granted. And when you travel around the world like David just traveled around, he was shocked. He went into health food stores in certain areas of New Zealand and Australia, and he was shocked. He was looking at GNC-type stores that were around like 20 years ago, the type of nutrition that they get. We get the stuff here. And you know what he told me? The stuff we have right now, we have no idea how lucky we are to walk back there and see all those things that we have available to us because of the shoulders of giants that we're standing on. And you know what else he said? If we don't appreciate it, it will be taken away. And how do we appreciate it? By actually utilizing it and really paying respect to the people who are bringing these technologies here. Donna Gates is one of those amazing experts. She's a pioneer. The Body Ecology Diet, her fantastic book, has evolved into a complete system for building immunity. It's sold over 180,000 copies, and that makes me so happy. Everybody in the world needs to have this book. It's phenomenal. And it's now in its 10th edition, which is unbelievable. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my immense great pleasure to introduce to you one of my idols and one of my mentors personally, Donna Gates. Are you here? Where's Donna Gates? Come on down, Donna Gates. We want a cheese scream for Donna Gates. Woo!
Stand up here.
Thanks so much, Donna. Thank you very much.
Golly, I'm going to cry. That's amazing. I've never been acknowledged like that. Thank you, and thank you for telling people that I did stevia and coconut oil and now fermented foods. Because it's funny, I go to a lot of conferences for autism, for example, and what they've learned from us has totally changed the way children are being born and preventing autism, and we've helped many children recover, but nobody ever acknowledges me for doing any of that. So they really have totally changed how they're curing autism because of what we've done and taught, particularly with the young coconut kefir. That surprisingly has made its way all around the world, and it's really one of the most important. I think I had to divinely be guided to create that before we could begin to work with autistic children, because it's been an amazing drink for them, helping them start on their path to recovery. So anyway, thank you. It's amazing. So I was asked to do a PowerPoint, which is not my thing usually, but I'll maybe at times try to go off of it and maybe finish fast so that I can answer some questions. So I think this particular talk is on digestion, and tomorrow I'm going to talk on brain health. And they're very, very related to each other. So I was very fortunate, I thought, to have 2 chances to talk and teach, because there's a lot to say about both these subjects. So today I'm going to start laying down a principle, kind of like a foundation. And one of the things I just want you to know about the Body Ecology Diet is there is a diet. We have a way of eating that we suggest people follow, but actually it is not really a diet. It's a whole way of life. And what makes it different from a typical diet, like the Atkins diet or the South Beach diet or the raw food diet or whatever, is that it's based on 7 principles, 7 universal principles, and they're laws that we have to live by. Now, Chinese medicine is based on the principle of yin and yang, and everybody knows about Chinese medicine and yin and yang, but there's other universal laws in the universe too that we are bound by. So yes, we have a recommended way to eat. But the way we recommend to eat is very, very flexible based on these 7 principles. So what is a principle? It's simply a law that's fixed and can't be changed by anyone. We have no ability as human beings to change these laws the whole world. I mean, every animal and every plant is bound by these laws. We have no ability to change them, so they're fixed. And when we disobey these universal laws, we really suffer. When we follow the laws, life works really well for us, and we're very peaceful and happy. And what's happened lately, though, is we've been very disobedient, mostly because people really haven't been teaching us what these laws are. So they're not handed down from generation to generation. They need to be. Without the universal laws, we're lost. We make mistakes unknowingly. We argue among ourselves about what is the right path. We become separated and angry with each other. Instead of living in peace and harmony, we always talk about how we want to create a peaceful planet. Well, we'll never do that until we start to understand and honor these laws. Eventually, when we find what we believe in so strong, find what we believe in so strongly is not working. Oh yeah. So if we believe in something really, really strongly, then we start, and it doesn't work for us, we start to get really confused. And that's where people are right now. We have a very scared, frightened, confused world. Finally, we give up, and then we never find the joy and happiness, which is really what we're here to achieve in this lifetime, is to become joyful, happy beings. So the bottom line is the universal laws really work. They lead us to answers when we're confused. And they make life a lot easier. You know the saying, let go and let God? Well, that's what we need to do with these laws, is just follow them. They can't be changed, and they teach us to be humble and grateful, and they show us how much we're loved. There really is this power, this universal power that cares about us and has given us these laws so that we are safe and protected. And when you start to follow these laws, the most amazing divine arrangements start occurring in your life, and you start to feel a real strong sense of protection and a lot of guidance and a lot of love coming to us in this world. So, going into the 7 principles, I just want to first list them, and then I'm going to just take a few of them today and, just explain them. There's the principle of uniqueness, and there's the principle of balance. Principle of balance, principle of acid-alkaline, principle of step-by-step, principle of cleansing, principle of proper food combining, and the 80-20 principles. There's really 2 of those. They're kind of alike, but okay. So when you're not sure what to do in life, there's always at least one of these principles that tells you. One of these principles will have the answer. And that's why I've been, 8 years ago, I kept hearing about this thing called autism, and I really love children, and I have a degree in child development, and I just had this real strong pull to go check out what was autism. So I went to a conference in Atlanta, and there the doctors, who most of them had children with autism, and they didn't want to give their kids drugs, had started this group called the DAN Conference, Defeat Autism Now. And so they were, trying to figure out what was wrong with their kids and how to help them get well. But what they had done at that point in time was they really had a good understanding of what was wrong with the kids. Like they noticed that every single one of them, they noticed they have yeast infections. The fact is 100% of them have a yeast infection. And most of them are blood type A. That's something I discovered down the road, but because I've been following blood type for about 26 years, and I started doing consultations, and everybody was a blood type A practically, and then that's since been verified. But anyway, they knew a lot. They knew they had mercury and heavy metals, but they didn't know what to do. And so I didn't either. But I thought, gosh, let me just see what I can do. And it was really each of these principles that I pulled out and looked at. applied that I began to teach to this first group of 6 mothers. And in that group, 2 of the children became well really quickly. Over time, I lost track with some of them. And, some of them couldn't do it. The bottom line is it's hard sometimes to be on the body ecology diet because we ask people to do strange things like make fermented foods. But since then, thousands of families have come through our body ecology diet recovering our kids program. Many children have recovered. And the good thing is that the doctors have have always been very open to working with the parents and hearing what the parents had to say. So the parents would come in and say, I started my son on this coconut kefir, and he's speaking now. He's speaking 30, 40 words in the last month. So that's really one reason they realize now that digestion is critical. You have to first heal the digestive tract to heal the brain or heal anything. And they also, have come to understand the importance of beneficial microflora in the gut, fermented foods, and so on. So anyway, back to the principle of uniqueness. We're all unique. Everything about us is unique. We have unique souls. I think that's actually very important because, there's somebody. We're all here training and learning, and some of us have a much more difficult challenges ahead of us, and so it's really difficult for us to judge another person. We don't understand what their soul is, what lessons their soul is learning at the moment. And that's one thing I will say, that I've been doing this work for a long time, really about 30 years, and I was very judgmental in the beginning. I thought when I was macrobiotic, everybody should be. When I was raw, I thought everybody should be raw. But over the years, I've softened a lot on that, and I realized we're really, really unique, and we have totally different needs. And so there isn't one way for everybody. There's no one-size-fits-all diet. Now, there's consequences to arguing over which diet is the right diet. First of all, if you don't do whatever your group is doing, we're very tribal. And if you don't do what your tribe does, you kind of feel guilty. And that's not good. And then there's always this feeling of emotional separation, which is bad because our brains are actually wired to be tribal. We're not happy when we're by ourselves. We're much happier when we find a group that's like us. Like being here is really cool. Feels good to be with a whole bunch of people that think and do what you do. And it creates, a lot of times when you're arguing over a diet, it creates rifts in families. And so here's the husband, and he wants to eat pizza, and the wife's really into feeding herself and the kids right, and then all of a sudden there's separation between them, and it makes us judgmental, and that's not a nice quality in us. So now, as far as being raw vegan, it's not for everybody either. And I think that this community is beginning to realize that. A lot of people who are 100% raw for a period of time, which worked probably really well for them, began to realize that after a certain period of time it wasn't right for everybody. And that's really because of this law of individuality, this principle of uniqueness. And there are times where if somebody has a really underactive thyroid and they're cold all the time, then they need warming foods. And so eating all raw foods would be inappropriate for that person. If somebody has AIDS, if they're just HIV positive, they would be better not to eat raw. But if they have actually, AIDS now, then they're better off on a raw diet. There's times where certain conditions where raw is absolutely the best way to go. And if you're a very active person, let's say that you were out building roads, or you're a farmer, then it would be very hard for you to be able to nourish your body on a completely raw foods diet. And then what happens over a long period of time is that when we get into the brain on Sunday, and I talk to you about the brain and what it needs, you'll see that you can become very spacey because unless you do you can balance everything off, which is the principle of balance, which I'll get to, but you can become very, very spacey unless you have some grounding foods in your diet, which could be cooked. You can be vegetarian, you can be vegan, but I just think being raw all the time is potentially dangerous, and it has everything in the universe has a positive and negative, and that's the principle of balance. So we have to always look. We have to be willing to look at what's the positive and what's the negative to everything we do, every relationship, positive and negative about ourselves. So when a person has nutritional deficiencies like protein malnourishment, which I'm going to get into, then you can really get in trouble being on a raw vegan diet. Now, when is raw right for you? Well, if you have an acute viral infection, let's say you have herpes in your body and it breaks out, then that's absolutely, positively the time to be on a raw diet. You don't want any cooked foods, certainly no animal protein, no sugar whatsoever. But we always say we do raw right because Bodycology is a probiotic diet. It's a sugar-free diet, so we don't have sugar. We don't have a lot of like rich sugary foods in the way we do raw, because too many people have viral and fungal infections in the body and it causes inflammation. So if you're diagnosed with cancer, though, the first thing I would say to somebody is go on a raw diet, the way we recommend doing it. And because that person's got to detoxify quickly, they've got liver issues, the raw diet's absolutely the right diet for them. Now, anytime your body starts to move into a detox or die off, where it's starting to cleanse, that's the time to do a raw food, go on to raw foods. If it's summer, right now it's spring, and actually for a lot of us, spring started in February, so we're actually moving into late spring. Around the end of February, if you live in a warm climate, your liver starts to go into a different phase and it starts to cleanse, and so that's when doing raw foods. It's time to. In the wintertime, people need to keep their body warm, so they'll naturally take in more fats, they'll be drawn to more protein and more salt. But when the weather starts to change, especially in that spring, the liver's trying to lighten up, and then by the summer our bodies have to be very, very light so that we're active and we sweat. So in order to discharge what we stored and held on to in the wintertime, we have to let it go in the spring and summer. So spring is a great, great time. I mean, I think everybody, I don't care if they're living in Chicago and they eat meat and a lot of fat or something like that, or you belong, like Sally Fallon's group. It's not the time you would be even, when I say that, I mean Weston A. Price is very big on fats and butters and so on. Those become too heavy for us at this time of the year when the weather starts to turn warm. So if you live in a dry climate or in a hot climate, those are times where the body needs more raw, it needs more liquidy, fluid type things. It's all just about balance. We have to give our body what it needs, not what we intellectually think it needs. It's really what the physical body actually needs. When we become too contracted, then uptight like this, then we naturally crave expansive foods, and raw foods are more expansive. And then when you wake up in the morning, too, we wake up usually very dehydrated and very contracted. So I think in the morning having more raw foods is very appropriate. The liver doesn't need much food in the morning anyway, because the body's just kind of getting started. And the liver, if you eat big heavy breakfast like the traditional breakfast of eggs and bacon and toast and juice and cereal, that is just way, way, way too much for the liver to process. So I like a light, liquidy, more raw breakfast in the morning. Now, there are serious consequences when you do wrong. So, and one of the main things is the effect it has on the brain. And then, of course, the liver, too, there's issues with doing, in one way, doing raw for the liver is very good. In other ways, it can actually be damaging to the liver, which I'll get into. And it can be a real fast track to early aging for sure, and also really dying way early. So you have to, if you're going to do raw, you need to know how to do it right. And it's mostly because of the sugar. Sugar is very damaging to the liver. It's devastating to the brain. It literally causes the brain to rot. It can't get rid of it. There are things in the brain like brain-derived neurotropic factor that chop up the toxins in our brain, and sugar completely destroys the BDNF, it's called, and you can't get rid of the toxins in your brain. So slowly but surely we develop spaciness, dementia, Alzheimer's. I don't think anybody in here is like at that stage yet, but you really have to watch sugar. No matter how you're eating, you have to watch sugar. And here are what I consider the most common mistakes that are made when I see all of us doing raw, is there is too much sugar. It really slams the adrenals, sugar does. And the adrenals are linked very intimately with the thyroid. And so when the adrenals go down, the thyroid goes down. And those two organs are where you get your energy in the body. And the diet cannot have enough protein. It's not just because maybe you're eating protein, you think, but are you digesting it? That's a big, big issue. So I constantly see from blood tests and so on very low protein malnutrition. Everybody, whether they're vegan or meat eaters or raw or not raw, I see protein malnourishment as a really serious problem. Period. And there are also many people that are doing raw wrong are not understanding about the right story about good fats. And we have to eat fats, or our body doesn't make hormones. The good fats are important for brain health, for having healthy hormones, for liver, and for really true energy. And ideally, we should be getting energy from other food sources, not from sugar. But so many people are eating too much sugar in this community that their energy is coming from the sugar they're eating, not from a really true, honest source. If you don't nourish your adrenals and thyroid, you won't have real, true energy. That's where your adrenals come from. And your energy comes from. And also hormones. You've got to have balanced hormones to have an immune system that works right, a brain that works right. There's one hormone, it's the most abundant hormone in the body, called DHEA. And the organ that needs the most DHEA is the brain. So if your adrenals are weak and they're not producing DHEA, then your brain's going to really suffer. So it's really a complicated thing and way more than you need to know, but the bottom line is sugar's just devastating for the brain and devastating for the adrenals too.
Honey too? Honey also?
Any form of sugar, that's a good question. Sugar is sugar. Sugar is in carrots. And so if you juice the carrots, you're getting a lot of sugar. If you just eat the carrot by yourself, you're fine. But when you juice it, which people have been doing for a long time thinking it's good, it's very, very rich. You might as well eat a candy bar. And it absolutely makes your blood acidic. And then the yeast and the viruses grow like crazy in your blood. So all forms of sugar, rice, all the grains, wheat and rye and barley and oats and honey and agave and all of them, rice syrup, all of them are sugar. Now, I'm going to try to explain when we get to the principle of balance give you more information and I think will be useful. So, now, everybody has probably heard this, but I don't know why I'm carrying this thing around, but I'm going to put this down. I don't need it. Okay, so enzymes. The whole way that raw got sort of popular and started growing was that everybody said, well, raw foods are better. They have enzymes. Well, and you need enzymes for digestion. Well, raw does contain enzymes, but that doesn't ensure that you're going to digest the food. It means there's enzymes in the food itself. But how the food is prepared is absolutely critical to being able to digest it. And how you chew your food, a lot of people are really bad. Or as we get older, our teeth start to move out of place, or maybe they never really were lined up right, and so we don't chew. And we're in a hurry when we're eating, so chewing is really important, but a lot of people don't chew. And then, of course, there are enzymes in our stomach. Now, this is really, really important because most people are deficient in hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid is a vital enzyme. Even if you're not eating meat or animal protein, hydrochloric acid triggers the pepsin to start digesting any protein in your stomach. And hydrochloric acid also triggers the enzymes in the small intestine to start working, and much of the protein is digested in the small intestine. So if you don't have enough hydrochloric acid, you're not going to have pepsin, you're not going to have trypsin, chymotrypsin. Those are the ones in the small intestine to digest the protein. And so there's more to the enzyme story is what I'm trying to say. And how well those enzymes are working in the small intestine are absolutely critical. So, but many people would do well to actually go out and actually purchase the enzyme pancreatin in the health food store and take it with everything that you're eating, every protein, whether it's nuts and seeds or fish or whatever we need pancreatin, and it's easy to get in the health food store. Pancreatin is spelled Pancreatin, and Jarrow makes a nice one, for example. Now, here's the biggie, is about the beneficial microflora in the gut, and I can't wait till tomorrow to talk to you more about the microflora and how critical they are, and especially the connection between the gut and the brain, because we are very much influenced. Our behavior and what we do and how we feel and how we can heal or not heal is very much influenced by this connection between the gut and the brain. And it's the microflora living inside the abdominal brain that are so vital, and people have not known anything about this, and that's what I'd like to share with this community. Now, another thing, too, that affects digestion tremendously is, are you calm or under stress when you eat? And because digestion completely shuts down when we're stressed out. And today, I'll say this probably several times through my talks, but the microflora in your gut are just now beginning. There's research all over the world being done on how having healthy microflora in your gut helps us handle stress. Stress isn't going to go away. It's part of this life that we live in. Human beings have always lived under various kinds of stress. But how do we deal with the stress? So the microflora in your gut will help you deal with stress tremendously. And now the research is finally showing that. So let's look at the raw versus cooked myths. There's the raw food is alive and has lots of life force, but cooked food is dead. And cooked food lacks the nutrition found in raw foods. And nutrition is destroyed during cooking. Everybody thinks that. Raw foods are easier to digest. Cooked foods lack enzymes, so are difficult to digest, and we use up our metabolic enzymes digesting them. So is cooked food bad for you? This really shocked me myself, because I used to believe the same way. I did think that the enzymes were important. But later on, much more science at universities like MD Anderson, Cornell, major food science universities that study food all the time, actually have done an enormous amount of research now looking at what happens to food when it's cooked. So there's an entire way of life that thousands of people around the world follow based on a theory, Ann Wigmore's theory, that you need to eat it raw because it has enzymes, so it's better for you. That's not the reason to eat raw, because of the enzymes in them. There's other reasons to eat raw, but not because of the enzymes and because cooked food is bad for you. So we have this science that gives a lot of, actual fact to this myth, basically. So it was really, we've had for a long, long time a very incomplete understanding of foods and how digestion works. So digestion factor is critical. And this is where you pull out the principle of balance. The principle of balance offers clarity in this question, cooked or raw, which is better for you? So the principle of balance says that everything has a positive and negative to it. And so there's a positive and negative side to raw, and there's a positive and negative side to cook. So that's the thing that I like for people to learn through body ecology is always ask that question. If you create something called an antibiotic and it looks like it's amazing and it saves millions of lives, does it have a backside to it? Well, 50 years later, we discovered it has a big backside to it. So as long as we ask that question, we will always be safe, because if you look for the backside and you find the backside, you can fix the backside. So let's take a look at a carrot. Now, what really makes your carrot nutritious? Do you have a question? Okay. The nutrient, you can have 2 carrots, and the nutrient content of one carrot will be completely different from another carrot. They could even grow in the same farmer's field, and the nutrient content will be completely different. That's one thing they've discovered very crystal clear in research. So the variety of carrot would make a difference. And what's the growing condition, like the soil and the water and the sunlight that little carrot got, and the time that it was harvested. Like maybe they were, harvesting these carrots, and some of them got picked at a different time, And so the nutrition value was completely different because of that. Was the carrot allowed to reach maturity? Was the apple? They're picking all these plants now too early, and then they stick them up in a shelf in a storage locker somewhere, and they don't have the nutrition at all that one would have if you walked right out and picked the apple off the tree. And once it got picked or harvested, how did they care for it? Did it immediately get refrigerated, or was it left out in a truck somewhere or shipping around, all over the country? So these are the kind of questions we really need to be asking about the food that we're eating is, what can we do to make our food more nutritious? And so here's some interesting facts about cooking vegetables. There is a mineral loss, but it's only 5 to 10%. And not as much as you might think. And if you cook the vegetable in the water and you drink the water, there's no mineral loss whatsoever. And the vitamin loss can be up a little. It can be 5 to 20% of vitamin loss. So what we teach people to do is to create balance, is to use that principle of balance and solve this problem. So the minerals that are lost in the vitamins are B and C. So if they're lost in the cooking water, then one solution is to take that cooking water and either drink it or put it back into a soup that you're eating or something. Use it for soup. So you're not really completely losing you're not throwing it down the drain, for example. And then you can take, let's say some vitamin C is lost. Well, let's say that at that meal where you have some cooked vegetables, you also have some cultured vegetables, fermented vegetables, which I'm going to talk more about. And they're, let's say, made with cabbage, which has a very nice amount of vitamin C in it. When you increase the amount, when you ferment something, you increase the amount of vitamin C hundreds of times. So now you're having this little serving of cultured vegetables loaded with vitamin C. In your body's going to get all the vitamin C it needs. So it's really, again, this principle of balance is so important. And also, if you lose B vitamins from cooking, the microflora that are in our fermented foods that we recommend, for example, and recommend that you make or eat or buy, these microflora in these fermented foods get down inside of you, and they do amazing things. But one of the most amazing things they do is they make B vitamins, and vitamin K too, right down inside you, right at the gut wall. So there's no better way to get B vitamins than that. And what's really special about these microflora is they know which B vitamins you need at that exact moment in time. There's no way you can get that from a vitamin or a supplement. So they're really magical alchemists in that sense. Now, the way the food is prepared is critical for digestion. You have to soak your seeds and nuts and your grains to remove the phytic acid. Cruciferous vegetables, the family of cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, arugula is a member of that family. It's a huge family. They're amazing foods. They're amazingly excellent at helping you detoxify. But they really need to be cooked or fermented. Even fermented, they have a slight suppressing effect on the thyroid. But when you eat them raw, they have an extremely suppressing effect on the thyroid. So if you want to, say, make a wrap using collards or kale or something, at least blanch it. You can put it then in the refrigerator, make it cold again, and use it as a wrap. But raw suppresses the thyroid. And fermented is a tremendous improvement. But if you eat a whole lot of, say, fermented cabbage, you could suppress your thyroid. You have to eat a lot of it. Now, there's even a way to make balance with that. Just make your cabbage or fermented cabbage with some kelp or sea vegetables in it. Or eat sea vegetables at that meal, because that then balances. So you have a food that's got this ever so slightly thyroid suppressing effect. So eat something that boosts the thyroid. And again, this is where the principle of balance always tells you what to do. It's not hard to learn any of these principles. You just have to learn them and start focusing on them and start practicing them. And pretty soon you'll find they're very easy to do. If you eat animal proteins and they're cooked, like let's say you eat fish or chicken or something, and it's been cooked, or eggs, that's another big one. People cook their eggs so they're done. They have so much heat in them that they go up at least another 10 or 15 degrees in temperature, and you might as well be eating rubber bands as far as being able to digest that protein. So we always teach people when you're eating animal proteins to eat them more rare or raw, like maybe seared tuna, or if you don't mind eating raw fish. Again, this gets back to having lots of, is raw fish safe? Well, if you have hydrochloric acid in your stomach and lots of microflora in your body, it's fine, because parasites will never live in a body where the gut's clean and healthy. It's disgusting to them. They wouldn't stay. They only like to stay in dirty, nasty places. So one of the most wonderful things that microflora do is they keep your gut really, really clean and healthy, which keeps your liver clean and healthy. It keeps every cell in your body cleaner and healthier, and you're not conducive to, when we get more and more toxic, we start to emit a vibration. We become very, very attractive then to bacteria and viruses, and cancer starts growing in our body. And so keep your body clean and your cells clean, and you're not delicious to these things that eventually are going to take us away. Viruses and bacteria and fungi and all, they have a purpose in our body. They are growing inside of us as we get more toxic, so that because someday the more toxic we are, the sooner we're going to die. Once we die, the old-fashioned way is just to be put in the dirt, go back to dust, and then these things become real active in us, and they just get rid of our body. That's their function. So the more toxic we are, the more appetizing and appealing we are to these pathogens. So the microflora have an enormous role to play in keeping the body and the cells clean, keeping the gut clean, and keeping us like parasites. And they also eat eggs and larvae. So if you ate something with some salad or something and it had some parasite eggs on it, the microflora just gobble it right up like it's caviar, and you'll never have a parasite infection. So let's see. So animal proteins are being cooked to death, and they shouldn't be, and people are not getting any food value from that. And then fats should be eaten raw. Really, they shouldn't be cooked at all. And the only fat that we have in our diet that we recommend people take is ghee, which is clarified butter, and it's actually very medicinal, and it's great to cook with. Long time ago, even in Ayurvedic medicine, as soon as a baby was born, they put a little bit of ghee on the baby's tongue, like right away. And I wondered for a long, long time why that's so, but the fat in dairy, raw butter, and even in ghee is a very important fat for the brain, which I don't want to talk about the brain too much right now, but in breast milk is over 50% of the energy that a baby gets from breast milk comes from the fat in the milk. A healthy mother breastfeeding her baby should have a lot of milk fat in her milk for the baby's developing brain and for the bones. And the fat drives the minerals that are in the milk into the bones. But we're not breastfeeding anymore, but we still have to feed our brain and nourish it. And I'm going to talk about that, how to do that. If we don't do that, then we lose our brains. We lose the ability we get things like Alzheimer's. And I think it's real interesting that there's this older generation now that are all developing Alzheimer's, but remember, they're the generation that believed in science and decided to go to margarine, and they abandoned good old-fashioned butter. But so we really encourage people to try to eat their fats more raw. Now, I want to go into this potential for protein malnourishment that can occur in any kind of vegan or vegetarian community, and even every community, like the meat eaters of the world are very protein malnourished. It's not just one group, because we don't understand protein very well, and we don't understand how to digest it and the role the microflora play and all. So, a lot of people that go into, decide to choose to be on a vegan diet, they are going to be eating a lot of fruits and a lot of vegetables, and that's not enough protein just by itself. So then they might go into nuts and seeds. That's really, really popular, is to take nuts and seeds. It makes them more digestible to soak them and turn them into pâtés. But they're very difficult to digest, nuts and seeds. So you might be eating them and still not getting the protein you need, the amino acids broken down and getting into the cells like you need them. Beans are difficult to digest because they're mostly a starch with a little bit of protein in them. they ideally should be, to get the food value out of a bean, you should actually sprout the bean and then cook the bean. It's much easier to digest that way. And then grains need to be soaked, but because they have the phytic acid on them too. But and then some of the grain-like seeds that we recommend, like quinoa and millet, they are a good source of protein. They're high in protein. But again, it's only if you digest them. They have to be prepared properly. So there's potential for protein malnourishment in this community. Now, let's look at hydrochloric acid. I mentioned that just real quickly. It's needed for digestion of protein in the stomach. Do you have enough? Supposedly, if you look at your fingernails and you see if you have little white half moons growing out of the base of your fingernails, that means you have adequate levels of hydrochloric acid to digest any kind of protein, whether it's from the plant world or the animal world. If you don't have white half moons growing out at the base of your fingernails, you're deficient in hydrochloric acid. So how many people here have half moons? Wow, that's really good. And what happens is, as our blood gets more acidic, then our stomach stops making stomach acid. Now, our blood gets very acidic for lots of reasons, like we could be stressed out, and it has nothing to do with diet. But so half the room raised their hands and half the room didn't. That means you have to be extra careful and use enzymes and just be mindful that you're not digesting your proteins. Yes?
Is the half moon on every finger?
Well, yeah, see, the half moon and the thumb doesn't count. It has to be the fingers. And then what usually happens is some people maybe have a little one on their index finger, and then it has to be in all of them, and it has to be big and strong. So that's a good question. Now let me ask the question, how many people have half moons on all their fingers?
How about if you pull your skin back?
Still, it's more than in a lot of groups I've talked to. So, anyway, if they start coming back, your stomach's producing more hydrochloric acid. Yes. Oh yeah. We need a mic. Oh.
I have 2 sick children, and we're following the GAPS diet.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not wanting to do extra supplementing if I don't have to. She does recommend HCl, but it was my understanding that if you ate like a tablespoon of sauerkraut before your meal, that would get the enzymes going. Is that accurate, or am I misreading?
Well, the best way to get more... Okay, so she mentioned that she has 2 children on the specific carbohydrate diet. Are they on the spectrum? One, okay. So this SCD stands for specific carbohydrate diet. That was the diet developed some time ago, actually. And there was a book written called Breaking the Vicious Cycle, and that book was written for people who have gut issues. We find that our parents go gluten-free, casein-free, and then they usually move into the specific carbohydrate diet, and then they move finally into body ecology. Well, the reason for that, I think, has to do with a step-by-step principle. Is just going gluten-free, casein-free is a huge step, because it's mostly everything they eat has gluten or casein in it. So that eliminating those 2 elements of food is huge. After a while, they get comfortable with that. And then the SCD is appealing because it still allows people to make muffins and cakes and things, but they're using almond flour and different kind of nut flours. The problem is that almonds, nuts, and seeds, they're very acidic. So if you've got somebody with a yeast infection or with autism, you've got to alkalize the blood, so it's an inappropriate food. And they're dry. These flours are very dry, and they're gummy and paste-like, and they gum up the intestines. What you're trying to do is create this wonderful garden in the intestines, which is why when the kids finally move into the body ecology diet, they improve tremendously, because we've got all the microflora and this understanding of acid and alkaline, which they eventually... Well, you don't even have to understand the principles. A lot of times just do the diet, and the principles are woven into the diet, and they just start doing things. They don't know why it's working, but the kids start getting well. But so hydrochloric acid is something that as your blood becomes more alkaline, your stomach will start making more hydrochloric acid. But the best thing you can do if you've got little children is just do everything you can to start to improve their digestion and prepare the food so they're easy to digest. But do you know their blood types? Are they blood type A? A is the blood type that most of the children are blood type A, 8 out of 10 of them. And A is the blood type that has the most trouble with hydrochloric acid. Almost sometimes from early in life, they don't have any stomach acid. They're so acidic right from the beginning. So blood type A. Blood type O is the one that is usually the one who will raise their hands and say they have half moons on their nails. When you are low in when you're deficient in hydrochloric acid or very low on it, one of the things that's going to happen is you'll be very, very deficient in minerals. So your blood is acidic. You have to have hydrochloric acid to assimilate minerals. So people with low hydrochloric acid are usually very acidic, and that's like a vicious cycle because the more acidic you are, then your stomach's not going to make hydrochloric acid. So you've got this vicious cycle. Now there's another really important thing I want to tell you about that I discovered sort of, I think, through a divine arrangement by stumbling on pieces of research and just connecting the dots. But I think this is really, really important. And it's something I use all the time with the autistic children because, as I said, they really have issues with not having enough stomach acid, and they're very protein malnourished. Many times they're thin and they have this little big belly. That's a sign in a child that they're very protein malnourished. So they can't grow, their brain won't heal, and so on. So this is the cortisol and protein malnourished theory that I have. If you're deficient in protein at the cellular level, then this is the research that I found, showed that people who are deficient in protein, and you won't know unless you get your blood tested, you're probably sitting there and you may be shockingly surprised that you are, because you think, wow, I eat so much protein, how could I be? But then you go get your blood tested and sure enough you are. But if you are deficient in protein, your cells are, then what will happen all the time is your cortisol levels will be elevated. Now think about what that means when your cortisol levels are up. You never can relax. Your mind chatters all the time. And people have trouble sleeping. And it really literally affects their entire personality. You are not your calm, happy self that can experience life. You're your wired self. It totally shuts down your digestion. Your high cortisol levels just shut down digestion. And that's supposed to happen because if a gigantic elephant suddenly came crashing through the wall, instantly, every single one of us, our gut would just shut down, and all this energy in the gut would immediately be sent to the brain so we can react and get out of the way or whatever. But we spend a lot of our time in this stressful fight or flight mode, and so this for sure, protein malnourishment will keep you in a fight or flight, stress mode all the time. So high cortisol. Did I push that back? Let's see. Okay, so cortisol is often called the death hormone because when we have too much, we need a little bit or we don't have energy, but when you have too much of it, you will you die earlier. It raises your blood sugar and it just creates hell in the body, basically, really in the brain too. So poor digestion of protein from lack of enzymes or not enough protein in the diet and it equals a protein deficiency, and that elevates your cortisol levels. So here's what happens when your cortisol goes up. Your sugar goes up too. Blood sugar elevates in the blood. And then more insulin comes out, and then you're always dealing with what's called insulin resistance because the cells shut down and won't let all that sugar in. Now your insulin's too high. And this is what a lot of people have today is they have pre-diabetes is basically what it is. So if you've got high cortisol, then your sugar is going to go up. Then you're going to have even more of a loss of minerals. And the blood becomes very acidic. And when the blood's acidic, then you're wide open for cancer and viruses and parasites. It's inflamed all the time. We age really early. And you will have a change in your personality. You become a worrier. And you're like a perfectionist, always trying to fix everything in your life. So it's really difficult to shut off your minds and difficulty handling situations. I'll say this several times. The microflora play a profound role in helping us deal with all of this, and they help us deal with stress. When you have the latest research actually shows that when animals, like for example, they did this with pigs, and they put them on Saccharomyces boulardii for 3 weeks, and then they subjected them to stress. Well, the ones that got the Saccharomyces boulardii handled the stress, and the ones that didn't get it were extremely stressed out. So the microflora, the probiotic diet is essential for being able to live in the times that we're living through right now. And one of the things that the microflora do also.
So is kombucha good?
Oh, hold on, if you don't mind, just for that. I forgot my train of thought. Well, I'll come back, and I'm trying to go fast so I can leave some time for questions, and I love questions. Okay, so here is some foods that I would love to see introduced into the raw vegan community, because they're raw. Like natto. Do you all know what natto is? Well, if you live in California, it's so easy to go into a market, like an Asian market, and go in there and ask them to point out to you the natto, the organic natto, because you can't read it. It's all in Japanese. But they will definitely have, if you live anywhere in LA, for example, there's this whole strip on Sawtelle, just above Olympic, that has several great stores in there, and they have this organic natto. Natto is fermented soybeans. What they do to make natto is they take these organic soybeans, which are very, very rich in calcium, by the way, and they inoculate it with a bacteria called Lactobacillus. Lactobacillus is an amazing bacteria. You can freeze it and pull it out of the freezer, and it's just fine. You can put it in an autoclave for 15 minutes and open up the autoclave, and a whole bunch of it's still left alive. So it's a great bacteria to put in your gut, which you would do by eating natto. Now, it's a very interesting food. They say in Japan, either the Japanese love it or hate it. But it's what they do, what you should do, is you take it out of the little container it's in. And by the way, the ingredients will say that it has chemicals and stuff in it. Well, that's just a little seasoning pack, which you're not going to use anyway. So don't pay attention to that. Just that little pack in there, just get rid of it. The natto is great. And so you take it home and you put it in a bowl. And then you can put things in with it. Like we always put in the cultured vegetables, and we put in mustard, for example. And you beat it up. And as you beat it up, you'll notice it starts to get kind of stringy and strange looking. You don't see that in food very much. What you're looking at is a biofilm. Now, I wish we had time to do a whole talk on biofilms, because it's one of the most important, hottest topics in health and medicine today. What happens is that bacteria, first they're floating freely in our blood, and then they start to gang together, and then they start to form like a wall around them, a polysaccharide wall, and it's like being in a city. You can't get into them. There's no antibiotic in the world that can get into them. So now this is when a person ends up dying from this. The antibiotics don't work, for example. Well, natto is an example of a beneficial biofilm. That's why you can't get rid of the natto. And it's an amazing hardy bacteria to put in your gut. Now, maybe it tastes a little funny to you, but with most of the fermented foods, they're new, and so you may not like them the first bite or two, but if you keep eating them, after a while you really grow to love it. And you don't have to eat a lot of it, just a couple tablespoons. But I always tell people, when we do our workshops and all that about it, and then I tell them that, it's really weird tasting, and then they come and eat it, and they're perfectly happy with it, because I kind of over-dramatized that there was weird-looking food, but it's an amazing food. It's absolutely amazing, and I don't see anybody promoting it in this country. It builds your immune system like you won't believe. It gives you really beautiful, glowing skin, hair, nails, and so on. It's amazing anti-aging food, because it's a protein that's been pre-digested, and it has all these amazing microflora on it. So I'd love to see that food be discovered in this community. And then, of course, miso is great. One thing about natto, it doesn't have salt. Raw miso has salt. So it's actually more appropriate in the cold climates and in the cold months of the year. And there's a lot of great things you can do with it. Even just dissolving the miso and putting it in a salad dressing gives you this great bacteria. It gives you more protein. We believe in taking the coconut out of the meat out of the young coconut and fermenting that. Remember, when you ferment something, you do remove the sugars in it, and also you increase its nutritional protein value hundreds of times. So the fermented coconut kefir coconut water has a lot of sugar in it. And you drink it all the time on a regular basis, and watch how quick your hair will start to turn gray. But if you ferment it, then the microflora eat up the sugar, and they enhance the. It's a very cleansing food. It's very rich in these cleansing proteins that help clean the liver, for example, help clean the kidney and the blood. So now you're getting rid of the sugar, but you're bringing all these microflora in there into this drink, and you're getting this amazing, amazing food. It's one of the most extraordinary. I think between the natto, the young coconut kefir, and the cultured vegetables, I think those are the absolute best foods on the planet right now for what they do. If you really understand the importance of these microflora and what they do in the gut, you would always eat these fermented foods. Now, miso, a lot of times if you buy miso soup in a restaurant, they've boiled it and then it kills the bacteria. So if you're going to use miso, you should not heat it very much. Keep the temperature under 105 or 10 degrees. Now, we have a new product that we just brought out. I mean, to tell you the truth, my real motivation was for our autistic children because they are so protein malnourished. It's called Potent Proteins, and what we've done is we've taken, in this little jar, 50% of that jar is fermented spirulina. When I get into the brain, you'll see that fermented spirulina is phenomenal for neurotransmitters like GABA and serotonin, so we feel so much more relaxed and so much happier when we eat from the blue-green algae family, and particularly like the spirulina. But what we've done in this formula is that we've taken over 50% of that jar has fermented spirulina, and then the rest of it is quinoa, millet, biodynamic brown rice, soybeans, chickpeas, and alfalfa and flax seeds, and they're all fermented. So it's all high, very, very, very high in protein. A little tiny half spoonful of it is like eating, a couple pieces of chicken and a steak and everything. It's so powerful. It's been out in Australia for over a year, and it's actually we have body ecology is real spreading like wildflower and fire there, and we have a TV station that's kind of like QVC that's selling our probiotic liquid and then this protein powder. Well, so just normal people buy it, and they don't have a good diet or anything, but amazing stories have come back from people using it. But also what I think is interesting is it's really caught on with the surfers in Australia because they can stay in the water an extra hour longer. But the main thing is it's just you really, really see it in working in the brain. Your brain will become so sharp after being on it for several weeks. It's not one of those things that you take and you get this immediate burst of energy, but slowly but surely and steadily you start to correct a protein deficiency. The brain has got to have protein to function right. So I was really glad to be able to get that made in Australia and brought over here. We'd have more of it, but the USDA is holding it up, and we're supposed to have it like Monday or Tuesday, but we thought we were going to have a bunch of it. But we have a little bit, and you can sample it and taste, It's very sour. All fermented foods are very sour. And if you've been eating a lot of sweets and not a lot of sour, you may not like fermented foods at first. But that's like 4 days. And then after a while, you would never be without the sour taste in your diet. Sour, when you start eating the fermented foods, sour dampens your desire for sugar. And last night I went out with my family and friends to my friend's birthday party, and we were at the restaurant, and of course everybody wanted a cake, and it was a delicious cake. I love chocolate, and it was delicious chocolate cake. But honestly, looked at it, I thought, that is pretty. It's like a really pretty work of art. But the desire to eat it was zero. It's no more appealing to me to eat sugar than it is to eat a piece of cardboard. And that's what happens when the microflora start living inside of you. They absolutely take away your desire for sugar, which is hugely important for babies because our kids today live on a high sugar diet. So this protein powder, you can even give to a baby. And you can give the babies the coconut kefir, the fermented coconut water. We put, to prevent autism in our other families, and they usually have super babies, like the second child around is like a super baby. We have them put the juice of the cultured vegetables and the juice of the fermented coconut kefir on the baby's tongue shortly after birth to get that microflora down in the gut, which I'll talk tomorrow. I don't know, how am I doing for time? 3 minutes. Okay. I didn't know what that meant. Is that the right slide? Oh yeah, I must be. Okay. So I mentioned already the principle of balance. This is such an important principle, and it is what Chinese medicine is based on, the yin and yang principle. But there's so much more to this principle than people understand, and we don't like to use the term yin and yang because it's too confusing. But I prefer to use the term expansive, like sugar, for example, makes you spacey. Drugs make you spacey, LSD and pot and so on makes you spacey. But some foods make you contracted, like salt, and foods with salt in them, like animal protein, make you more contracted. Now, it's not good to be too contracted or too spacey. You really want balance. That's what the principle of the cross means. And the spiritual, disciplines all over the world, there's this sacred cross. It means that this, the spiritual world and the physical world should be together. And male energy and female energy, all the different winter and summer and cold and hot, bright and dark, uptight, too spacey, too sweet, too salty. When you cross those opposites, right in the middle, where the center of balance is, that's where amazing things happen. Like in a male and a female, that gives you the ability to create another human being's life. So, studying the principle of balance is fascinating, and it's really important to always apply it in your life. So we always want to create balance, and you certainly can apply this law of balance to food and to digestion as well. The principle of balance tells us that everything has a positive and negative side, or a front and back to it, and we get in trouble when we don't look for the back, as I mentioned before with antibiotics. So always look for the back. So let's say you take something like chocolate, for example. Yes, it has some good properties in it, but it has a backside too. So you have to decide, is it right for my body to have it at this time? It could be. I'll tell you a story. I had a friend years ago, actually, and he had this dog that he loved tremendously. The dog was really, really old, and he couldn't walk anymore, and they had to pick him up to take him outside. And they knew that they needed to take him to the vet and have him put to sleep, but nobody could do it. So finally, it was such a tragic thing to see this poor dog. So I went with my friend to the vet, and we put the dog to sleep. And then he was like in shock afterwards. So what I actually had him do was pull the car into a little store and went in there and got him a bunch of sugar to eat, and it pulled him right out of his shock. He literally was in shock. So you see, everything has a positive and negative side to it. So also too, cruciferous vegetables, like I mentioned before, kale, collards, and so on, they have to be cooked or fermented. Even when they're fermented, it doesn't remove the thyroid-suppressing problem. So how would you make balance with cruciferous vegetables? That's where you put in your sea vegetables, things like kelp and kombu and wakame, and you bring in your good fats. Like coconut oil is really good for the thyroid, as probably everybody knows, but other fats too, like egg yolks, are excellent for the thyroid. Fish oil is really good for the thyroid. Butter is good for the thyroid too. So the thyroid loves the fats that have vitamin A in them, because the thyroid always works intimately with vitamin A when it's doing different things in the body. So here's a solution when you're trying to fix the balance issue. It's either blanch or lightly steam your vegetables, and when you eat them, include kelp or ocean vegetables in that meal. Ferment them and eat them with other probiotic foods, so because the microflora always help with digestion of anything you're eating. And so let's say that you broke down and you ended up having sugar. Like let's say last night I was going to eat a piece of that big old chocolate cake. And so then I was sorry afterwards, and I felt all spacey and bloated, and immediately, felt it in my digestive tract, and I was sorry I did that. Well, you can actually undo the negative effects of sugars. Like there's antidotes, for example. You can put apple cider vinegar in your water and sip on that. For some people, if they're too spacey from eating the sugar, then eating a little bit of animal protein will ground them. That can be a balance for people. And adding fat into your diet at that same time, it's also like raw butter and coconut oil will help balance the assimilation of too much sugar. Salt is also a really great tool. I know my time is up. Salt is a really, really great tool for balancing when you're too spacey. It's a must. Sugar is extremely expansive and it depletes minerals, but sea salt is very contracting and it contains minerals. And so definitely, if you're not using sea salt in your raw foods, you need to be using them. Selena naturally is here, and she's got the Celtic and the Hawaiian and the Portuguese salt. She's bringing salt from Haiti over here soon. But the Hawaiian salt is a phenomenal salt to eat in the summer months. It's a light salt, very amazingly pure salt. You can even use it for cleaning your nasal passages. But so she's right here, and you might want to ask her. She's one of the most amazing authorities in the world on salt. And she's right here at this event. So definitely stop by and talk to them. And then, should I stop?
One more minute, if possible. I'm sorry, we just have a tight schedule.
This is like one of the most important slides. Let me just say this one. Sure. I know. Okay. Well, here come the microflora. We haven't talked about them. Whatever I don't say today, I'll say tomorrow. They produce B vitamins and vitamin K. They keep their environment clean, so they keep all your cells cleaner, and they help balance our hormones. They screen out toxins from the food. You know how all the women are being told right now to avoid mercury in fish? And yet fish is actually a good food for the baby's developing brain, so they're not eating fish. Well, the microflora know that there's mercury in that fish, and they just eat it up and get rid of it for you. They take microflora and work them into the soil all around major factories. And then, they water it down, and they come back in another couple of weeks and do it again. And then in a month or two, there's no chemicals. And the place was horribly poisoned with chemicals. So the microflora are the ones that clean up the oil spills on the ocean. They're amazing. They're used in mining to get gold out of other heavy metals. And and they extract the minerals from our food. Otherwise, we'll be very mineral deficient. This happens in the small intestine. And so they really are the true superfoods. When we talk about superfoods, the micro-fermented foods are the really true superfoods. They aid in the digestion of all food eaten. They increase the nutritional value of foods when you ferment them hundreds of times. So vitamin C becomes hundreds of times more vitamin C if you eat it in a fermented food. They boost immunity, they protect and nourish your brain, they prevent constipation. When we do eat sugar, if you go have a little bit of probiotic liquid or young coconut kefir, eat some cultured vegetables right after, the microflora will eat up that sugar and not damage you. Because sugar can be damaging, but without the microflora in your diet, extremely damaging. And they are really the premier anti-aging foods. So we'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Donna Gates.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.